What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with the Infinity Edge podcast. It's another solo podcast with me. I'm Pikel. I feel like we've done that already. But it's another solo pod. Alan, the Hef, had a child. So congrats, Alan. He had a son named Otto. As in auto attack or automatic. I'm sure we'll come up with more nicknames as time goes on, but it's my understanding that everyone is healthy and doing very well. Congrats again, Alan. Ghost is on vacation. He's meeting with family and doing other things. Obviously, a worthwhile pursuit as well. Maybe not on the level of having a child, but it's obviously very important, especially after the amount of time that we've been spent isolated from people. I'm glad that they're both out there doing real life stuff. The only real life stuff I've been doing is real estate. I had a 5-hour meeting today. Didn't have lunch until like 2 or 3 o'clock. It was pretty hectic. I made a great deal. Whether or not it goes through or not, I can live with, how I performed today in the meeting. So I'm very happy with how it all went. But before we get into the LEC and LCS slates, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about the promo code that you can use, IEDGE, IEDGE, if you'd like to show some love for the video and the videos that we do and everything. If you use the code IEDGE when you apply for a subscription on the esportsdepartment.com, you'll get 10%. With how today is gone, you'll get that 10%. I'm not making any jokes today. Today is all business. But we should get into the games for this weekend. We have LEC and LCS. Let me get DraftKings up here. So for the LEC, we have another qualifier. And then we have a 5K to first tournament for the $10. So let's take a look at the salaries. I'll have that on my other screen. But let's get into the games. And we can also take a look at the previous results. And this really is the best way to do it. I mean, I know that sometimes my arguments for why a team is the better play seems a little crutchy with like the amount of narratives that I use, but I think that basing it off of how people feel about matches is kind of important because it helps you identify where that edge is actually going to be, and it's a good strategy. Is it the only strategy? No. Like, if you're somebody who's max entering all of these contests, you can chase those low percentage outcomes a little bit easier, especially if your bankroll is larger. But I think ultimately, the advice that we give is very actionable. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. So, first up, let's go to the LEC. First, we have Vitality against Astralis. So, if you go to recent matches, Astralis has lost 5 in a row. They lost to Rogue, who is a team that they should lose to. They lost to Fnatic, who is a team they should lose to. They lost to Misfits, a team they should lose to. They lost to G2, another team they should lose to. Mad Lions, another team they should lose to. And then they beat XL and SK, which are 2 games that they obviously have great chances to win. And I don't think they were favorites against both of them, but they were good. And in a spot against Vitality, who has been on a little bit of a win streak, they beat G2, Mad Lions, and SK. They had a good match against Rogue, I think. But beating Mad Lions and G2 back-to-back is obviously very good. That was one of the narratives I was thinking was going to be integral to how you kind of made your lineups for last Saturday. So Vitality against Astralis. What do we think about the players? So SLT and White Knight, I think that it's pretty even. White Knight has had the better performances that we've seen on stage. SLT is more of a supportive top laner where like they're not afraid to bring out stuff like the Lulu top, which is going to give you a lower kill upside but will theoretically give you a better chance to win and a higher assist upside, where you get the 10 assist bonus or something like that, which is fine. I think that Selfmade is an exponentially better jungler than Zanzara. I think that Leader is not a one-dimensional mid laner, but is being made out to be a one-dimensional mid laner because their team drafts a specific way around them. And then I think Crownshot and Labrov are just straight up better than Jeskla and Promiscu. So when we take a look at the money line, we're at minus 323. Let me get my piece of paper here. At minus 323, that's about a high 70%, high 70s percentile. So if you do that divided by 5, you're looking in like the 15 and higher range in terms of ownership. I think that it's tough to get away from Vitality at that level of ownership. If they got up to like 25 or the high 20s or 30% ownership, then you can start thinking about fading them. But I'm not sure we're going to get to that level unless all these other games suck, which I haven't determined yet. So let's see. Let's take a look at some of their other recent matches. So Astralis, obviously, it seems like every single time they can get Lee Sin, they just lock in Lee Sin. Same thing for mostly Lee Sin. I think White Knight has played like a ridiculous number of Lee Sin games. Side selection. Not sure who has side selection. And then Vitality against G2 busted out the Lulu, which I was talking about. Crownshot. Crownshot really is more of a carry player. If we get into a hard carry ADC meta, that's going to be better for Vitality. Vitality is honestly the type of team that has the Suning upside. Not because I think that Crownshot is on the level of Huanfeng, but because that's who they're modeling themselves after. So in the LEC, if we get into a late game hyper carry meta, I think that Vitality is going to be in a very good spot. I do think that Rogue can go toe-to-toe with them in that meta because Hans Sama is kind of just like insanely good and also plays Draven, which is a good counter to a lot of the hyper carries. Then we have Fnatic, Upset, very good hyper carry player. That's generally like how Europe views AD carries. Like Kabe, very good extreme late game. Patrick, very good extreme late game. Hansama, Upset, Crownshot, Reckless, all very good at the extreme late game hyper carry stuff. Reckless is often going for that early game style. Karzi is often going for that early game style. But all of them have the upside of being like the focal point of their team in a very late game environment, which is just a good thing to know about. Then we have another Astralis game, Nocturne. Nocturne's turning into one of those picks that is like Jhin-ish for me. Like I hate Jhin. When my teams that I'm betting on picks Jhin, I just assume that it's a loss. So take that as you will. Viego, I mean, after these LPL matches that we saw recently, like if you give away Viego, you're just asking to get outplayed in the late game. So it's still the same thing where like if the team that you want to bet on has given away Viego as the blue team, you got to be like, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, don't do that to me, please. And then when they don't do it, say thank you. And if they do it, say why. Vitality, Set, Viego, Evelyn is interesting. You don't see a lot of Evelyn players out there. Selfmade is known as an Evelyn player. This is a spot where Crownshot went for the early mid game with Varus because of the lethality build. You can like do a lot of poke damage to the enemy team, especially when they don't have real tanks. So Jace is not a real tank. Rumble, not a real tank. Rise, not a real tank. Karzi, definitely not a tank. Nautilus, yes, it's a tank, but when you're a support, you're less tanky than if it was like a top Nautilus, which isn't really a thing in pro play. Just making a point. So, in this matchup, I think you have Vitality, who's been playing very well recently, and you have Astralis, who is a high death when they lose kind of team. I think that Astralis has not been able to put together a really solid performance against an upper echelon team in recent weeks, but I think they are definitely capable of doing that. I'm not comfortable playing Astralis as a primary stack. I think they do make sense as a secondary stack, and they do make sense in the team slot, because there are a lot of scenarios where they could lose a match and still perform well as like individual players in a lineup. So I'm not full fading them, but Vitality is definitely the better side. Let's just go to the next game. SK Gaming against Rogue. SK Gaming, God. So SK Gaming beat XL, which, obviously I'm on the XL side there, but SK sucks. They've won one match. They made a change recently with their support. Now they have Lilip. But that's not a big enough change to make me think of them differently. Like, he's just not good enough to do that. I think Rogue is way too good. This is a spot where you just play Rogue or fade Rogue. Rogue's ownership percentage, especially in a matchup against SK, is probably not going to get much higher than the low teens. So if you want to match the field, you can do that. I think doubling the field is very hard. If you want to use Rogue in the team slot, you can do that, but I'm assuming they're the most expensive team, and they are. They're also pretty expensive at support. They're generally the second and third most expensive team slot, and then fourth most expensive, third most expensive in most other spots. So it's tough to play them and feel good about it, because you don't really feel great about the upside in wins or the floor in losses. So tough to play Rogue. A question you should ask yourself is, how much Rogue would you play if they were 7 or 8% owned? That's how you should make that decision. And if you say to yourself, I want to play 12, 13, 14%, your options are either, the two scenarios are going to be either I'm like 30 to 40% over the field, or I'm with the field. And as long as your lineups are somewhat attempting to be unique, then being with the field isn't going to be terrible. Next up, we have Mad Lions against Misfits, or Misfits against Mad Lions. So, Misfits against Mad, they have not played each other yet. Misfits has beaten Fnatic, which is a good win. And it looks better and better as time goes on, because Fnatic has looked better and better. Beat SK, no one cares. Beat Vitality, good win. Lost to Rogue, that's fine. Beat Astralis, obviously. Beat XL, obviously. Beat Schalke, obviously. Misfits has looked good. Misfits is, and it hurts me to say this, Misfits is overrated at this point. I still do believe that Mad Lions is the better team overall. And this is a very good spot for Mad Lions. So let's take a look at that. So Mad is minus 147. I don't feel good about minus 147. I feel very good about their prices on DraftKings. So Mad Lions, you can get them as like the fifth most expensive team, the fifth most expensive player in their spots, outside of support, which has it a little bit inflated. They're the third highest support on the slate. I think Mad is in a great spot here. I'm a Misfits fan. I want Misfits to do well. They've broken my heart. They've broken my heart on several occasions, where they were the difference between me being in first place or not cashing, and they've broken my heart several times. So has G2. It's not a special Misfits thing only, but that's really just where I'm at with them mentally. Let's just go lane by lane, and maybe that'll help you understand where I'm at. Armut and Hyrit. Hyrit has played very well this split. Hyrit has looked even better than what they really are because they've won so much this split, and people didn't really anticipate them having whatever and one record. I think Armut is just as good as Hyrit in most games. Probably more often than Hyrit. Elyoya against Razork. Elyoya, is Elyoya overrated? Yes. Is Razork overrated? I would say probably not. So that's fine. Champion matchup-wise, I don't think there's really much there. Humanoid against Vetio. I think that Humanoid and Vetio are somewhat similar. Humanoid is more of a known commodity. I think Vetio has been given the opportunity to shine in a couple of matches where it inflates people's perception of him. I would still prefer the Humanoid side. Karzi and Kaiser against Kabe and Vander. This is really where I think the biggest difference is between these two teams. I think that Karzi and Kaiser are the better side because they're willing to take the game into their hands at earlier points in the match. So as long as they're willing to make aggressive plays, even if they don't draft aggressive champions, they will have the tempo advantage in that spot. So I do think that Mad Lions is the better side here. I think that Karzi and Kaiser will be what they play around ultimately because Kabe is the kind of player by design who will give up the early game in an attempt to be relevant in late game scenarios. I think that it is more of a deficiency of coaching than of the players themselves because like ultimately you can only play what the coach puts you on. Like yes, you have input in that, but that's ultimately what it comes down to. If Misfits, and I guess this is the other side of the coin, another reason why Mad Lions might be an even better play is because what if Misfits says, generally we go for these late game scaling compositions. What if we just try to fight them in the early game? If they try to fight them in the early game, then that increases the chances of Mad Lions winning in a blowout, or just in a game where there's like over 20 kills. So this is a perfect spot for Mad Lions. I think if you want to play both sides, I totally understand why. They're both priced reasonably well. Misfits, moving forward, is going to be priced a lot higher because when they're playing up against lesser teams, you're going to have to pay the premium for them. But if I had to pick one side and only play one side, I'd play Mad Lions. And it's really not close, in my opinion, from that perspective. Mad Lions ownership is not going to be anywhere near where it should be. So I think that's a very good spot tomorrow. Next up, we have G2 and XL. G2 is the obvious play here. XL, not necessarily the team that you want to play against. XL gave up 18 last week. They gave up 17 last week. That's not so bad. I mean, that's interesting. I think that you want to be early on G2, and this happens all the time. So I'm willing to roll the dice with G2. Always. This game tilted me beyond belief. The fact that G2 had a 3,000 gold lead and lost that game is unforgivable. They cost me so much money. Like, I would have won another Rift ticket. I probably would have won or had a very realistic chance of coming in solo first in, like, the Titan's Fury or whatever. Just a complete heartbreaker for me personally. Very upsetting. I guess I skipped the Schalke game, so let's go back. Schalke Fnatic. I'm picking G2 for that game, so that one's done. Now we're doing Fnatic Schalke. Apparently, Bwipo can jungle, so we don't have to worry about that ever again. And they're just a more talented team than Schalke. So again, it comes down to like how confident are you that you can get a good number of kills from Fnatic. Fnatic's one of those teams that will just continuously pummel the opponent and drag out a game just to play for like the 99.5% outcome They'll just keep doing that. Schalke gave up 21 kills, and Schalke gave up 19 kills. Schalke also sold their team, by the way. So I don't think that's actually relevant, but it's funny. It's definitely relevant. It's not going to impact how well they play, but it is funny. So that's that. So to review, I think that Vitality is in a very good spot here against Astralis. Astralis has not been as competitive with the better teams as we would have hoped. Is it possible? Yes. But I think that if Astralis was competitive with Vitality, it wouldn't be like, oh, Astralis won with 25 kills. I think it would be like, oh, Vitality only managed to get 13 or 14 kills in their win over Astralis because they played a late game scaling composition, disengaged really well around the objectives, and kept it a low kill score game. With SK against Rogue, somewhat similar. I think that Rogue will not necessarily go after the high upside number of kills unless they have to. I don't think that SK will make them do that. I think Mad Lions is in a great spot against Misfits. I think this is the best spot that you're going to get for Mad Lions all year round, especially if Misfits tries to fight them in the early game. I think that's really the only reason you should feel comfortable playing Mad Lions. Or not that you should feel comfortable. If that is the scenario you're playing towards, that's how I could see myself justifying doubling or tripling the field with Mad Lions. Misfits is a live dog. I think that Misfits is good. I've been preaching about Misfits for a year, so I hope you don't think I'm just like flip-flopping. But this is the kind of game where I would expect them to put up a good fight. Ultimately, Mad Lions wins because they're the better team long-term. Fnatic against Schalke. Fnatic is in a very good spot. Schalke is normally not a team that we want to play against, but they have given up some big kill score performances recently. If you just want to fade Fnatic altogether because they're so highly owned, go ahead. It's a reasonable thing to do. And if that's a long-term play for you where you're going to do it over multiple slates, then fine. And then G2 against XL, same thing. G2, probably ownership's a little deflated because people are like, wow, how bad is G2? And then they're also like, oh, well, XL's not even a good team to play against. So G2's in a good spot. So if I had to pick two teams that I would want to play more than anyone else, it would be Mad Lions and G2 for the reasons that I stated. So there's that. Let's go to the LCS. All right. So we have 100 Thieves against Team Liquid. 100 Thieves minus 150. Team Liquid plus 120. Great spot for Team Liquid. I think just purely from the fact that you're getting two teams that are somewhat evenly matched and you're getting one at plus 120, I think you have to take Team Liquid there. I think that we should go through the lane by lane. I don't know who's starting in the top lane for Team Liquid. I would assume it's still Jenkins. Someday is better than Jenkins. Someday and Alfari are much closer and stylistically different. Alfari is more likely to go for the carry matchup. And like I said, it's not ultimately the player's decision, but like that's just the champions that they play. So like I think that coaches are impacted by the players they have at their disposal as well. It's not just like what champion is best in a vacuum. It's what champion is the best with my team in this scenario. So that it does change things. I think Armeo is still the starter. Closer is better than Armeo. Closer's also better than Santorin. But Closer against, like, in a matchup with Closer against Santorin, you could get Closer on Xin Zhao against Santorin on Nidalee. And, like, they both have winning chances. If you get Closer on Xin Zhao against Armeo, and Armeo plays, like, Sejuani or Trundle or something that's more passive and gives away the initiative to the enemy team, then that has a big impact on the theoretical upside of the number of kills. So I think that if you want... They could both be low scoring for very different reasons. I guess Armeo is the better option for Team Liquid to run out there if you want 100 Thieves to win with a lot of kills. And then with Team Liquid, I think that since they have a higher percent chance of picking a tank jungler, it increases the number of fights they probably need in order to win the game. Abadage against Jensen. Abadage is better than Jensen in my opinion. That's just an assumption that not an assumption. It's something that you have to take as like the truth. At least I do. FBI and Huhi against Tactical and Core JJ. I think that FBI is probably better than Tactical. I think that Core JJ is better than Huhi. And ultimately, they're not the position that I think is the most interesting for determining which side is going to win. I think that really comes down more to jungle. Jungle is going to kind of dictate the mid jungle duo is going to dictate how this game plays out. Like I said, I like the Team Liquid side here. I think that I prefer the Team Liquid side for a real life bet and also for DraftKings purposes. I just think that they shouldn't be at plus 120. So do what you will with that. Let me see what their salaries are like. Hundred Thieves are inexpensive. They're 4th or 5th everywhere, and Team Liquid is 5th basically every spot. So there's not a huge difference between the salary to get either one of them into your lineup. But Team Liquid will be lower owned. I like the Team Liquid side. I think it's a good spot. For numerous reasons, which I've gone through for the most part. Let's take a look at recent matches. This was the last week. Yeah. Yeah, so we have Sejuani, and Olaf. Then we have... Oh my god. This is the kind of stuff that I absolutely love. Hundred Thieves. This team composition right here makes me love 100 Thieves more than I've ever loved 100 Thieves in my life. Putting Lee Sin as a support is so smart. It's such a good idea. I have so much more respect for them now that they would do something like this. The next evolution of this that you're probably going to see is Shen Senna. And if that happens, we're going to call it Shenna, and I will get credit for it. You can take that one to the bank. We're going to get Shenna. I think it will be very good. FlyQuest Evil Geniuses. FlyQuest got their first... Oh, they didn't get their first win. They were supposed to get a win against Golden Guardians, but they didn't. And they subbed out all the... Oh my god. FlyQuest did the biggest jerk move ever and announced that they were starting 3 of their academy players after lineups locked. That leaves a horrible taste in my mouth, obviously. Evil Geniuses beat Dig, but we all hate Dig because of the Dardoch situation. Evil Geniuses against FlyQuest. It's a great spot for Evil Geniuses against FlyQuest. FlyQuest is always giving up a ton of kills. They have a difficult time converting wins. I think that you can fade FlyQuest with pretty high confidence, but at the same time, we've been playing them the entire year so far, so you probably don't want to give away that narrative yet. TSM against Dignitas. Again, if you're looking for objective opinions on stuff, just don't listen to me about this because I hate Dignitas and I like TSM. So play TSM. and ignore Dignitas. I would not play Dignitas. I don't. Actually, yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, do I understand how it could turn out into a good DraftKings day for them? Yes, but I'm not playing towards that. Immortals against C9. C9 keeps finding ways to win games that are disgusting and people hate, but ultimately they're winning their matches. So you can't get too upset with them. Just keep playing them. Just keep playing C9. You don't give up on C9. This is annoying. I don't like it when they put perks on champions that don't have like carry upside. Like, can you snowball out of control on Nocturne? Yes. But even when you're fed as Nocturne, there's only so much you can do. You don't have as much agency as other champions. So just play C9. I would fade Immortals. I guess you can't fade Immortals. I'm gonna fade Immortals, but I don't feel good telling you to fade Immortals. Like, I'm fine with that outcome. I don't know if you are. Just C9 is so much better, and we haven't seen the best out of C9. CLG against Golden Guardians. This is a spot where you obviously have to play both sides. CLG has these great compositions that they draft, and I love watching them play. But that's why we like the other team against them for DraftKings. Golden Guardians kind of adopts a bend, don't break mentality in a lot of their matches, and they're very good at it. Surprisingly good at it. So here I think you have to play both sides. Let's see what the DraftKings... CLG is so expensive. Yeah, CLG is way too expensive. That's going to depress their ownership, so you can still get them and not have to do like a ridiculous number of lineups with them. And then Golden Guardians is underpriced, in my opinion. Yeah, they're slightly underpriced with their upside. So I would feel pretty good about playing them. So I like the Team Liquid better than 100 Thieves for DraftKings. Evil Geniuses, obviously. TSM, obviously. C9, obviously. And then CLG and Golden Guardians. You kind of have to play both sides. If you want to do something other than that, I totally get it. If you want to incorporate Dig into your lineups because you think they'll be extremely low-owned and they have good upside against TSM, whatever. If you want to play Immortals because C9 sucks, then go ahead. But like, that's not a narrative that I can convince myself of. That's basically all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. While you're doing all of that, you can also click the notifications button so that you realize when our new videos come out. If you're going to subscribe to the esportsdepartment.com, use the code IEDGE, IEDGE, and you will get 10% off your subscription. So thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you later.